everyone. I'm Angela Kirkian, your Director of Education, and welcome to another segment of In It Together. Today we get a chance to chat with Tim Walden. Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
It's an honor, always.
I appreciate you so much. You know, you're one of my favorite people. I've learned so much from you. I took my first class with you in, 94. I'm aging both of us, so I apologize. But I have learned so much from you. On so many aspects of doing business. You guys have a phenomenal business in Kentucky, and you share so much and give so much to our photographic community. I just want to thank you so much for all that you do for us. But today I want to talk with you a little bit about what's going on in the world today, and how you guys are coping, and maybe some new things that you're doing. And as we're starting to get through this and kind of coming out of it, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yes.
You know, maybe some great advice we can give, our members for how to handle what's next, right? So how are you and Bev doing?
We're doing wonderfully. We're keeping focused, and we're trying to not say later, gosh, I wish I'd done that when I had the time. Now we're trying to do it.
Yeah.
And, like everyone else, learning, growing, and doing the things we need to do to roll up our sleeves and be ready for that season.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you and I were talking earlier, and, a lot of people are talking about new ways of doing business and what they're going to do differently now because expectations might be changing. Are there any things that you guys have put into place, or any things that you guys are working on as you're moving forward into opening again that you would share with us?
Absolutely. We're like everyone else. We're learning as we go. The one thing I would encourage people through all of this is to say that I believe that even with some of the changes and maybe some of the complications that we all are concerned that we might face, I believe that the art that we produce and the purpose it serves for families can and will be even greater. And I would encourage people to really think about what is the purpose of your art as you build toward this. Not just to get people back through the door to have a picture taken, but to tell their stories, to celebrate who they are. That message has never been more important. And I believe that's something, none of us want to learn it this way, but I believe it's something that's being learned through this season, is that what's important in our life are the people we love, celebrating them. And I think this is an opportunity for us to allow the purpose, the result of what we do, to be shared and known to our industry. Now, to answer your question, kind of what we're doing, we're doing the things that we know will bring comfort to those that want to come back in. Mm-hmm. How can we do that? So we've created a page on our Facebook called Safety Measures, so that how are we addressing those concerns that people might have. We're looking to build our design appointments online, so we can do Zoom design appointments, just like we're sitting here talking today, because you can look people eye to eye. They can see your expression, that they get the emphasis and the tone. I think we want to keep, Bev and I want to keep as true to the things that are important to us, and that's communicating, learning about people, sharing the purpose and the method of creating art as we create it. And so we want to keep as much of that as possible. And we're preparing for some things, as I mentioned earlier, that we don't know yet if we're going to need those avenues, such as selection appointments through Zoom and so forth, But we've filmed 17 bite-sized videos through this time that are informative about the selection process, about our art, about learning the story, telling those stories. So we've been working a lot to be prepared beyond those touch points that we might have with somebody actually physically. How do we make it happen in another fashion?
Yeah, so one of the things you guys have always been so good at, I feel like I've said this to you many times, is you're really fantastic about helping people understand the value of what you do, and really giving it importance. So tell me about those 17 videos, because I feel like you guys already do a lot of education for your customers. But I love the idea that you're creating these little pieces that are further. Is it helping them, in relation to what's going on today, or is it just business and kind of helping them understand the value of what you're doing?
Yeah, it's both. And we're creating these videos. We kind of have two columns. One's information and one's inspiration.
Okay.
And so information, people take comfort in clarity, understanding, you know, your art, understanding its purpose, all of those type of things. So we want to be able to give them those bite-sized pieces of information. We want to be able for them to either access it on their own or to be able to send it to them to say, you know, as it relates to your portrait, here's what a black and white relationship portrait is. Here's what the purpose of it is. You know, and as we create offerings or products, I like to call them products, I try to call them offerings. As we create offerings for our clients, we think about how does that offering serve that person, whether it be that piece on the wall, a physical print. You know how I feel about the print. I mean, there's just nothing that is going to create and provide legacy and story and visual impact like a print. So we're making our case in these bite-sized pieces, both and informationally, so that we can embellish that experience as much as possible without being face to face. And it has to be in little bite-sized pieces. Because if you're going to do a 30-minute video on you know, your albums or something, I mean, forgive me, but I don't think I'm going to give you 30 minutes. So
Right.
Get to the point a little quicker. So we want to give people ways like breadcrumbs. There's an old saying, the heart buys and the mind justifies. So we're working to do both things. We're working to them understand the heart of what we do, how it's different from what the masses do. We're not recording your face. We're spending too much money to have your face recorded. You want to come here when you want to tell the story. You want your children's photographic legacy intact, those stories for generations to come. That's what you're here, you know, for. So we're messaging purpose and we're messaging value, and we're doing it in ways that people could get these nuggets when it's appropriate, and then we can deal with learning their story, photographing them, making the kind of the magic happen as much as possible.
Yeah, you talked about changing, you know, making changes to your business during this time and kind of re-strategizing some things, but then also I love the idea of creating more clarity, because we know that that's an area that consumers in our surveys have said photographers, they don't feel like we give them enough clarity. So I love that message and encouragement. But you also talk a lot about staying true to your core values and business principles in all of this. And you've done that. I mean, you've said that from, you know, the moment I met you. You know, you don't just add a product because it's pretty. Right. It has to fit your brand and it has to have a purpose. So how are you guys, are there any decisions that you see other people making right now that maybe you guys aren't going to take on yet? Or are there any things that don't fit necessarily with what you guys are thinking?
Yeah, you know, I certainly don't want to offend anybody because I'm not in charge of their brand, but there's things that don't line up with our brand that I'm not going to do. I'm not going to stick images online and let people go make a decision. I'm not going to lose that connection. It's
Right.
all stripped down then to like which expression, you know, what pose, what background. I want to get we work to get way beyond that. It's not about those things. When we photograph somebody, we learn their story. And then I want that opportunity in that selection appointment to say, do you remember the story you told me? How did I do telling it? I see that story in this image. If we throw away that side of it,
yeah,
I don't care if you think you had a good sale, and maybe you did, but you'll never convince me you're at potential. When you lose that connection with people, don't think so much in dollar signs. Think in terms of potential and purpose.
Yeah, well, I will back that up. You know, people have heard me tell this story many times, but you photographed our family when my son was 5. That was real important to me at that time to have you photograph him. And I remember you saying, if this time in your life were a chapter in a book, what would it be titled? And we talked about that. That was part of that pre-session consultation. And I remember just being so excited for this session and then the session happening. And then when you presented those images to me and you said, Angela, does this represent the word? Because I had titled that chapter Present. And you said, does this represent presence to you? And I just crying and yes, and those hang in my bedroom and my home all over because they mean so much to me. You tied an emotion to those images in a way that it's not just taking a picture of a face. You know, it's so much more. It means so much to me when I look at those images. And you're right. You need to share that story.
You're so kind. You know how much we love you guys, and you were so kind. And that is what I think could be favorable as we come out of this. I
Yeah.
think we'll get more purpose driven in our art and start thinking of the messaging from that purpose platform, from the story platform. People are inundated with image makers. So what separates you? I think there has to be a wide separation, a wide gap between you and the masses and what you do. And for us, that gap comes through investment worthy art. It has to be investment worthy, have the qualities. Part of investment worthy to me is the print. That's part of that investment, but also the story. That's part of what makes it investment worthy. What kind of visual impact does it have when people walk in their home? And then we have to begin to market that. I call that marketing the result of your art, not marketing your art. Too many of us, and I think this is going to be tough coming out of this, when you start marketing the mechanics of photography, you might have some issue. And the mechanics are, it's on the finest paper, it's mounted where it doesn't warp, it has this texture on it. I really think at the next level, we got to get way past that. I think that technical excellence and the mechanics of photography for a true artist selling art at the highest possible level has to be a given. That's not what we brag about. That should be a given. What we brag about to our customers is their family and how our art celebrates that. I think that this could be a great time to begin to be more purpose, driven in what we do. And then your question was building in processes, that help people feel comfortable in these times, but not throwing our core values away.
Right.
And that's why we're doing all this. We're building PDFs that we're going to send people that explain maybe some things we might have had the time to explain face to face. We're doing designs through Zoom appointments, and we're prepared to do selection appointments through Zoom. But as I mentioned to you before we went on, I'm going to wait and see on that. You won't see us marketing that, because I don't want to be the guy that says, oh, I've got to be able to do all of this or they won't come in. I want to wait and see. Maybe they'll come in, and maybe if we do all of those details right, Angela, of the experience being, one where they're comfortable and they're safe, maybe we'll be continuing to do that. So I'm prepared for the other way. And I've set some things in place that will allow me to do that, I think, as effectively as possible. But if I'm not asked, it's don't ask, don't tell on that kind of thing for me, because if I'm not asked, then I'm going to continue to do what I know is right for the experience, for the art, for the outcome, and for everybody's potential for that win-win. And then if it comes up, or I feel somebody's uncomfortable, I have set the videos, the PDFs, the processes in place for them to be able to make their selections from home through Zoom. But that one I'm going to wait and see on. But preparation applies.
I love that, because it's very intentional, and you're really considering each client. So you're not just taking a blanket statement and saying, this is what we're doing now. You're really looking at each person's needs, which I think as artists and doing the kind of work that you do really is important to your customer. And I always just love that everything that you guys do is very intentional. And I know Bev is a big part of your brainstorming sessions. Yeah. Please tell her we said hello. We love her too. Are you guys still doing your car rides? I know you guys used to do car rides to go.
We're doing more of them because we can't go in any place. So we get in the car. It's like, I can't stop here. So just keep driving.
I love it. For those of you guys who don't know, Tim and Bev talk about how they will just jump in the car and just to have conversation, and they'll just drive around and go different places and come up, brainstorm new ideas and think of things. And so yeah, I was just wondering how you guys were handling the stay-at-home order, but you're allowed to be in your car.
Yeah, well, thankfully we are. And, that really is that goes back to experience. I mean, we're together at home. What's the difference? But it's that experience of being in that car side by side with a cup of coffee that it changes the dynamic of our relationship for that 30, 45 minutes or whatever it might be. Yeah. And so, life's about experiences, and we have to create amazing and magical experiences. And sometimes those aren't all that complicated. They're just, as you say, purpose and intentional.
I love that. That's so true. That's so true. And that's exactly what you give your customers. That's we talk a lot about client first and really putting them first as in everything that you do in your business, which is what the whole Bridging the Gap, all of the entrepreneurial content that we put out is really reinforcing, and you guys do that so beautifully. You know, as we're wrapping stuff up here, is there any other thoughts or advice you would have for our audience on kind of getting back to work and preparing for the days ahead?
Well, I think the advice I would have is to shake off sometimes those little voices in your head that things are not, things may be different, but some things can be better. And we don't know how different they are. I mean, I think it's natural to say, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen, so it must be bad. And we don't have to think like that. I think we can say, okay, those are legit. There's legitimate concerns. Let's address those. And let's find creative ways. You're creative people. Who else besides photographers could handle this kind of situation as meaningful as you can? But there can be some amazingly wonderful things that come, and go ahead and prepare, even if it's not comfortable to prepare. Sometimes filming those videos and doing that, I was like, I don't even know what's going to happen. Why am I standing here doing this? Yeah. But yet something inside says prepare, 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 because you're going to be the one on that front edge, on the leading edge. And, a new normal doesn't mean not as good a normal. It just means it's a little different. It could be better. And I think our art, the other thing I would encourage you is to say, as artists and as photographers that portray people, don't belittle yourself and don't belittle what you do. I mean, we have a tendency to kind of be our own worst critics, and we talk about ourselves and our art in negative ways, and we use terms. Folks, people are trusting you with their legacy. You are doing something meaningful, and you're doing something that's important.
Yeah.
And I think it's not cockiness. It's taking ownership of the fact that, hey, this is important. I don't have to try to sell it. I just have to try to connect people to it, so they understand what it is, how it serves their family, what it means as time goes by. And when you do that, and you take that artist stance of respecting your art, because nobody's going to respect it if you don't.
Right.
Then I think you might be surprised that some pretty good things can come out of it. I don't know what they are, but I'm looking for more positive things.
I love that, and I think that when you do that, you're also gifting your client with an amazing experience.
Yeah.
That they didn't even know was possible. I mean, that's the fun part, right? You're giving them something they don't even expect.
Absolutely. And, we can do it. Photographers are an amazing group of people. They're strange and unusual in the most wonderful way. Because they're not normal. Like, they're people that love creativity. They love the thought process of, how can I do this? How can I separate myself and serve others? And if you take that stance, you might be surprised that some pretty amazing things could all come out of it.
I love it. Tim, thank you so much for jumping on here today with us and just kind of inspiring us and motivating us to take action, because I think that's another piece of this is once you start taking action, you also find some magic that happens in your thought process. And I just really appreciate all that you do for all photographers, for all small business owners. You and Bev are absolutely wonderful.
Well, if I can just say thank you to you, and thank you to PPA. I'm like number one fan for PPA, and folks, PPA is just knocking it out of the park, and the heart of service is amazing, and it's appreciated by me and by this industry. You guys should know that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I will pass that along. We've got some amazing people doing amazing things. So I will tell them you said that. And for the rest of you, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.